to Bamboo Pod, the astronomy podcast for people who are overwhelmed by the universe but want to be its friend.
That's so cute. Hi, I'm one of those friends. I'm Dr. Moiya McTier, an astrophysicist, a folklorist, and also a friend to my co-host.
Yay! I'm Connie. I am a curious friend of the universe. And today we're talking about how we name things in the universe, and I'm so excited about that.
Yes.
But the universe is it just named the universe, Moiya? Like there's the Milky Way, but then there's like the universe. And I know that trips me up sometimes.
Yeah, it is. The official name is capital U.
Capital
Universe.
U. Okay.
Yes, officially, this is one of the rules. Any proper name for an astronomical object is going to be capitalized.
Like the moon.
Yes, like the moon, specifically referring to our Earth moon. But if you're just talking about any moon or moons in general, like moons as a concept, then that is not going to be capitalized.
Right.
And so its official name is the universe. Bestie, I'm curious, since we're both friends to the universe now, do you think it likes that name?
I
think it'd rather be called something different?
I think it might rather be called something different. And I say that because, we got the Milky Way. We have Andromeda. There's so many galaxy names that have, very unique and specific, various reasons why they're called that. But, and then it's just the universe. I feel that way about the moon sometimes, but, I think she's okay with it.
Yeah, I feel like the moon likes it.
Because it's I'm the one. I'm the first one.
Exactly. She's a diva.
Yeah.
She loves this. But I feel like the universe, while also
a diva.
Well, honestly, I don't think the universe is a diva.
Okay.
I think the universe, like a good Capricorn, I think the universe appreciates honest and genuine acknowledgement of its achievements.
Okay. Are we talking? Is this book 3 coming up? The universe's perspective?
No, Connie, it literally is. I'm literally getting in the mindset for book 3. Thank you. So I think that the universe isn't necessarily a diva, but does like being acknowledged.
Relatable.
And so I think, yeah,
that's so relatable. It's like I'm not a diva, but just acknowledge me. Understand the difference between me and the Milky Way. Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm larger. I'm the universe. Okay.
Yeah, I am more than you can comprehend. And so I think that it would want a name that is grander. You know how Prince changed his name to the symbol?
Yeah.
I feel like the universe would want to do that.
Right.
It would want to have a name that's so abstract and intricate, like the arrival alien language, that we can't even say it out loud.
That's probably the problem, is that we haven't translated it yet, so it's just universe, but that's just how we've translated it.
Right.
And the people who decide, we know how they name things. We've gotten a lot of names from mistranslations of cultures.
So many.
And
I love that interpretation. Yes, we just haven't translated it right. Okay. Well, about naming other things in space.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions before we get into it? I am planning on talking about the history of how we used to name things, and then how do we formalize it, and some of the naming conventions for different types of objects.
Mm-hmm. I guess we'll go over when they first kind of not ratified, but unified the convention. So I'm interested in that. And I kind of know where some of the names, I know some of the origins of why we name certain things. I think it's cool. If you've been following Moiya on TikTok with her cosmetology, you'll see that there are different. I think it's cool that we expanded from just Greek mythology into other mythologies for some of the moons and stuff. So I'm curious how inclusive it's been, and how other cultures have named things, because it's the weekdays are different in different languages, and that's always a little fascinating thing to me of they call things differently. People have different time structures than what we're used to, and a lot of stuff has been globalized now, but it's very fascinating to me of what do they call the moon in other cultures, or what do they call it in other not just the moon, but other objects in space. And that's all just very cool to me.
Yeah, of course, in different cultures throughout history, they've had different names for this, and in different languages, it will translate to, a different sounding phrase. But the International Astronomical Union is the only internationally recognized body that can create the formal names, and they do everything in English and then let other committees or other like astronomers from those cultures figure out the translation.
Okay.
But they're like the formal official names are all in English.
Okay. So for Jupiter, it's like, okay, we've named it Jupiter, but this, another culture was calling it blah, blah, blah. And then we were like, that's the formal name for it now. Like, do they just like pick, maybe you don't know, but did they just like, okay, well, this is our name for it in our union, like our cultures, like in the Kenyan union or whatever?
No, because they would be a scientific society and they would use the scientific designations. But in like cultural practices, the IAU can't tell people sitting in their homes what to call something or what asterisms to see in the sky. Like this is going to be another point of disconnect between the official designations and what cultures call things.
Gotcha.
According to the IAU, there are 88 constellations. They are not shapes, but specific regions of the sky. And so any astronomer around the world is going to talk about those constellations, even though if you are in New Zealand, you have different cultural asterisms.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's get into the history of it, because so many of these most obvious objects, the sun, the moon, the 5 planets that you can see with your unaided eye, those in ancient times would have been called the wandering stars. And then many of the brightest stars that people have been paying attention to, like the star Sirius, which is one of the brightest stars in the sky, the star Vega, which at one point was the North Star, where now it's Polaris. At one point it was Vega. It will be Vega again. In Orion, the star Betelgeuse has always stood out because it is a different color, and so these stars and other objects have had names for thousands of years. Different names in different cultures. And when we started kind of scientifically studying these objects as astronomers instead of astrologers, when we started using telescopes in the early 1600s, we could see more things and we were trying to classify them better. Of
course, yeah.
And so we had to kind of agree on some names, and some of the old names had stuck. So from the ancient Romans, we were calling the planets what we are calling them now. And when the rules were standardized later, we just kept some of those like most common names.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was wondering about the other cultures too, of like, if up until that point there were like existing things that they already called it, like, wouldn't some of those names kind of just stick because that's what you've called it in Iran for centuries? And then this union, this is international. It's like, this is the name now. Figure it out. Like, I don't know.
Well, this is the official designation. Like that's, we are not telling, I'm not part of the IAU. They are not telling people what to call these things. They are telling people what to designate these things in official scientific contexts.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is important because as we started studying stars more through telescopes, I mean, ancient people, like Hipparchus did this. We were establishing catalogs of objects. So we have Charles Messier in the 1770s who puts together the Messier catalog of objects that look blurry in the sky. And we have John Dreyer's new general catalog of random, like irregular objects that comes out in the 1880s. And you have the Henry Draper catalog at Harvard of different stars. All of these different catalogs might be looking at the same objects, but giving them different designations within their database.
Right.
And even today, stars and like galaxies and stuff, they'll have multiple monikers in different databases. So if you look up a star on Simbad or Vizier, which are two kind of like stellar databases, they have all of the different names of the stars from the different surveys and missions that they've been observed with.
Okay.
So you can have a single star that has a 2MASS ID number. 2MASS is the name of a stellar survey. I think it stands for like the 2 micron all-sky survey or something. That same star can also have a Gaia ID number and a Kepler ID number, and like all of the different surveys that observed it will assign their own tag to it. And then we have these databases like Simbad and Vizier that collate all that information.
Nice.
Yeah. In 1907, the International Association of Academies, which was this, I guess, kind of exactly what it sounds like, different academic institutions from around the world decided that they needed to collaborate, and sometimes they needed to standardize things. And so this was like an early, like UN for science.
Yeah.
And in 1907, they established a committee to clarify and standardize specifically the names of things on the moon, because telescopes were getting better and we could see more surface features on the moon, and people wanted to name them.
Of course.
But they were naming them different things. Yes.
Like Lake Serenity, is that one?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. Yeah. It's like the one I know.
Yeah. And so they established that committee. However, that committee, quote, had not published a report due to a succession of deaths of members. End quote.
What?
I found
not a space murder conspiracy in the early 1900s. Like, what?
Someone get Agatha Christie on the phone now.
I will.
I have tried to find some meeting minutes from that year. I found one that listed in that single meeting. They met multiple times a year. In that single meeting, they had to be like, okay, these 3 members of our committee have died. That was not the first time they had to do that. Like, I think at least 4 or 5 members of this committee died, including Alexander Herschel, son of John Herschel, meaning he was the grandson of William Herschel, and he had tried to do a lot of this standardizing work. These people kept dying, but an assistant, a volunteer assistant named Mary Adela Blagg, because you got to count on a woman. You got to count on a woman to do the work. She comes in and she does all this work behind the scenes, collecting like the different names for different lunar features and figuring out what should we actually be calling these? How can we formalize a system for future named features? And it was her work that the International Astronomical Union relied on when they started standardizing things in the next decade. So the IAU was founded in 1919 to, quote, promote and safeguard the science of astronomy in all its aspects, including research, communication, education, and development through international cooperation.
Nice.
They now have 12,000 members in 90 plus countries.
Wow.
You can be an individual member as a person, or you can have an organizational membership, like the American Astronomical Society is a member of the IAU.
Right.
And all of those different members will contribute to discussion in 9 different scientific divisions. Each of those has its own special conference each year. So there's one for like high energy astrophysics. There's one for like planet stuff, whatever. And
or
whatever. But all of those 9 divisions, they're divided into 39 commissions underneath that. Like, little subcategories of space topics. And also 48 working groups that are like committees designed to make decisions about like process.
Right.
It's like the bureaucracy part of it, maybe?
Yeah, the operations crew or something. Yeah.
Yes. So within those 48 working groups, at least 5 of them that I could see were dedicated to nomenclature.
So like the how we name stuff,
How we name stuff, yes. Yeah. I found a spreadsheet of, I think, most of the proper names of astronomical objects. There are more than 27,000 rows in this spreadsheet. It's maintained by Eric Mamajek, and you got to check it out. It's so many
That
names.
sounds insane. What are the columns, I guess? I'm just curious if you remember. If you don't remember, it's
I don't
fine.
remember, but the spreadsheet is in the research notes for this episode for patrons.
Yay.
So if you're like working on a book or something and you need names,
it's
like
literally the main reason I love this stuff is because I love, even when I'm not like, just working on character thoughts and just like naming. I love to name characters and things. And so I love the history behind why an author may have named something and the connections. And that's a terrible example now, but the Harry Potter series was a big one for that in terms of like, his name is Remus Lupin. And I was at an age where like, I didn't know about the stuff. So like I'm looking into it and I'm like, oh, from the founders of Rome and the rumors of wolves, and he's a werewolf, and Lupin because of the moon. And I just love when authors do it and when they do it better and less like, when it's like a deep cut. I've started playing Baldur's Gate and I had to come up with a character and I named her Meneley after a moon goddess from I forgot the name because I don't know how to pronounce it, but from a California native tribe that had that name as their moon goddess. And I was like, oh, and then I can do all the moon stuff with her character and like all the light and all that jazz. So I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's really fun. Okay, so I have here some naming rules for different types of space objects, but generally speaking, all of these objects have an official ID. Probably multiple official IDs. And
is the ID its name, or is that something different?
That's something, well, what's a name, Connie?
What's in a name? Who knows?
Yeah. So all of these objects will have identifiers based on the survey that they were observed in, which will have like an acronym at the front that tells you what survey observed it, and then an ID number that either tells you the position of the object or like the sequence number that it was observed in for that mission. Like it was the 1238th object. So it's Kepler 1238. And then if there's some ambiguity, there might be some like unique signifier after that. So all of the Kepler planets, they're orbiting stars, and the star is actually what gets that name, Kepler 1238. And then the planets will have a little letter designation after that saying which planet it is. And so the nomenclature is kind of nested in that way. But in addition to those like alphanumeric ID tags, the objects, if they are popular enough or if they are scientifically relevant enough, will also be given a proper name. And these proper names are decided by the International Astronomical Union. The other stuff, like the ID tag, the rules are set by the IAU. Like it has to have that acronym and then the numbers. But the mission gets to decide what it's called. When it comes to the proper names, like Betelgeuse, like Ganymede, like Andromeda Galaxy, those are determined by the IAU.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that process is pretty democratic. Almost. So the names have to be 16 letters or less. They have to be in English. They have to be relatively easy to pronounce. They can't be too similar to another name that already exists for an astronomical object. They can't be named after, since 2022, they can't be named after people. Or at least like galaxies or stars. Stars specifically cannot be named after people.
Interesting.
But other things can. They're not allowed to be named after like military things.
Good. Great.
I think that's most of the rules for the names. Names can be submitted by whoever discovered the object, or if it's, an object that has been known about or is really popular, maybe the IAU will put out a call to the public to submit names.
And we thankfully haven't ended up with Planet McPlanetface yet.
Well, that's because there are still rules about the public submissions.
And that's why there are rules.
There are rules. Yes. Democracy with rules. That's how the IAU operates.
If only everywhere followed the rules of democracy. Anyway. We're not talking about Earth, we're talking about space.
Exactly. Space names only here. The IAU will sometimes ask for submissions from the public, and then a panel of experts, including astronomy experts, cultural experts, pop culture experts.
How would that be me?
I think by which I mean like public figures.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
will come together and discuss which of the names has the most merit in terms of like matching the qualities of the astronomical object to the qualities of the figure from myth or history or literature. And
Nice.
if you are using a name from an indigenous group or like an active culture, you have to get permission from that culture to use it.
Bless.
Yes.
Okay. Yay. We love inclusion. We love doing your research and getting the various communities involved.
For example, I was on the panel to choose the name for the like most recent quasi-moon that Earth acquired back in
Right.
2024. Yeah, the IAU put out this call for names with Radiolab's help, and a bunch of names were submitted. I got together with the panel must have been at least 25 people. It was amazing. The people who were there were pretty cool, and together we were trying to figure out what matched this quasi-moon, and we wanted it had to be named after a mythological being. And because it was around Earth, and like Earth orbit is seen as the transition zone between us and space, we wanted it to be named for transitional deities. Or like moon deities were what some of the submissions were. And so we discussed it. We narrowed it down to a short list. And some of the names on the short list came from Native American stories. And so
Nice.
Before we did the final vote, people from the IAU went to talk to those communities and get permission first to use the names.
Very, very good. I love the transitional nature of the quasi-moons. Also because, one, it's kind of a transient thing. It's like it's here temporarily and then it's going to ship off wherever else.
Yeah.
And the moon, it inspires a lot of thoughts of transformation and transientness of like werewolves. Obviously, it's one element of it, but just like the different phases and it being like progression of change. So that it all works together. I love it. I love when stuff does that.
Yeah, the IAU is good at that. Like
And what is the
finding
name?
the connection. We decided on Cardia, who is a Roman goddess of like doorways and liminal spaces.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
The moon and her foster sister, Cardia.
Yes. I want to go through the different types of objects. So galaxy names are, there are very few properly named galaxies that aren't just the names of the constellation that it's in. So like Andromeda, the galaxy, is named that because it is the biggest, most prominent galaxy in the Andromeda constellation. Same with the Fornax galaxy. Same with other things. Orion's Nebula. Yeah.
You remember science. You do this. This is your job.
My brain is so full.
It makes sense.
There are so many names in this episode.
No,
okay?
of course.
So typically that's how it's done. But if we have some other names like the Tadpole Galaxy or the Pinwheel Galaxy or these things that have kind of cutesy names, those are just like nicknames. Those aren't official designations.
Yeah, I think in terms of the public, it's hard to know what is like the official one and what's just like, well, we call it because it's cute. There, every once in a while, there's a story of like, oh, this planet that was called ER, 17. It seems like that's where some of the, like, would we call it an exoplanet if it's just past Pluto?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think so.
If it's past Pluto, but still we might call it a dwarf planet. We might call it, it might be in the Kuiper belt. So it might be or an Oort cloud object. Like, depending on its features, there are going to be different names for it.
Right. Yeah, because there was like a story of some planet that we'd found, and it was part of the reason why Pluto got demoted because it was something that was bigger than Pluto. And we named it something briefly, and then it was like the public finally learned what the name was. Was that a thing? I can't remember.
Yes. Yeah. I think this is Eris.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. The goddess of strife. Love that.
Yeah, specifically named because it threw the apple of discord into the whole planet.
Yes, we did discuss this recently.
I don't think we did, Bestie. I think you watched the cosmology.
Sorry, bestie. Just watching my bestie's TikToks,
Yeah, it was Eris.
I knew I heard it recently, okay? from you.
You're right. You're right. I did tell you about this.
You just told 10,000 other people at the same time.
Yes, and so the IAU also, embroiled in this conversation about what is and is not a planet. And so if we were to find another planet outside the orbit of Pluto, it could absolutely be considered a planet in the solar system. Astronomers right now are actively searching for a planet out there that I think at one point we're calling Planet X. I think now we're calling it Planet 9, which is just absolutely disrespectful to Pluto.
It's so disrespectful to Pluto. But also I'm glad we're no longer calling it Planet X because of just certain, social media platforms. But also it's giving the sense of like B7, like Beyonce's 7th album, or R9, like Rihanna's 9th album, like P9, just like the galaxy's 9th planet is coming soon. You gotta look out for the album. Where are the hints that they're in the studio? Once the IAU starts going in the studio, we know something might be up, okay? They start having all these committees and meetings, and it's just like, is there a kerfuffle? Is P9 coming? Or MW9, Milky Way 9. I think that works for me.
Solar system. Yeah, it's not the 9th planet in the Milky Way.
But the solar system. Mm-hmm. Because it's just our solar system. So is that another moon, capital M moon thing?
Yes, it is. Capital S, solar, capital S system.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. In fact, there is only one solar system because solar refers to sol, our sun. Any other system of planets orbiting a star is a stellar system. It is one of my big pet peeves when I hear people talk about space, but it's one that I cannot correct people on every time or else I will be a huge asshole.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know that you were prepared to unbreak this cycle for me today. Because wow, but the sun's name is not the sun, capital S.
According to the IAU, yes.
Okay.
Capital SUN. However, its historic name, its cultural name is Sol. Just like the moon's kind of cultural name is Luna.
Yeah.
According to where we English speakers in the Western Hemisphere get a lot of our base astronomy culture from.
Yeah.
The Greeks and Romans.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. So lunar landing, solar system.
Of course.
Yeah.
But it is the solar system, and this is the only solar system because the others are called stellar systems. Yeah. But this is also a stellar system.
Yes.
Not all stellar systems are solar systems, but all solar systems are stellar systems. You learned it here first, everyone.
Our solar system is the square.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Okay, I'm glad we cleared that up.
Yeah.
Hey, it's me. Connie is using my special relativistic reading glasses to speed read The Name of the Wind because I've been talking about it for years and now's a good time, I guess. So I'll use these moments to share some messages with you. The first being a big thank you to all of my patrons. We are an independent podcast, so it'd be so hard to make this show without your support, and we really appreciate it. So thank you all. And I want to give a special shout out and a big thank you to my sun-like stars, Scott Reynolds, Tom T., Nicole Bartlett, Ashley Shambo, Mark Mahoney, and Bruce Sedloff. Thank you for your support, my golden friends. You're beautiful, and I appreciate you so much. If you want to support this indie podcast on Patreon, you can hear your name on the show, make it onto my patron star chart, and get research notes for most episodes. You can do that for $5 a month at patreon.com/palebluepod. Or if a monthly donation isn't for you, you can do that once and become a supernova in the Pale Blue Pod sky at the PayPal link in the episode description. Of course, if you can't support Pale Blue Pod financially, we understand, and you are still space, so we still love you. There is actually a really great way to help the show that does not cost any money, and it's suggesting that one of your friends listens to Pale Blue Pod. If you can get more people to be friends with the universe, then we all win, and thank you in advance. My next message is a podcast recommendation. It's called Simple and Clean. It's a show where hosts Misha Stanton, who edits Pale Blue Pod, and Mayana Barron, who has been on Pale Blue Pod. Sometimes they invite their friends. Sometimes it's just the two of them, but they talk about Kingdom Hearts. It's a little video game franchise about really big feelings. And you can join them as they discuss the plot, characters, world building, which I love. I love world building, music, fashion, fan base, and societal impact of a thing that by all means probably shouldn't even exist. So it sounds like they talk about so many aspects of this game that no matter what part of society you're interested in, there's probably something there for you. If you've never heard of Kingdom Hearts, that's okay. They're going to break it down for you. That's the whole point of the show. So they're going to explain why they love it and hopefully convince you that this weird little story deserves a place in your heart. New episodes come out every Sunday wherever you listen to your podcasts, so check out Simple and Clean. That link is also down in this episode's description. Okay, Connie has now joined all the rest of us who are anxiously awaiting the conclusion to the Kingkiller Chronicles, so let's get back to talking about naming in an astronomical context to give her a little distraction. Let's talk about constellations. There are 88 of them. Officially.
Right.
They were formalized. The list of 88 was formalized in 1922. Their official boundaries, because that's really what the constellations are. It's like a designated region of the sky. Those boundaries were decided in 1928. So there were these 6 years where they were still trying to draw the actual boundaries. 48 of those 88 come from Greek mythology. They come from Ptolemy's Almagest. And then the others in more of the southern hemisphere, they have different categories. There's a whole section on like scientific instruments. So there's a telescopium and a microscopium constellation. There are a bunch of animals in the southern hemisphere.
It's like the periodic table where it's like, okay, we got the helium and the oxygen, but then you get to like stellarium or whatever. And it's just like, you're just naming it after like literally things now.
Yes. I think there's like an Einsteinium and like there's like a Californium or something. Like,
and it's funny because I feel like the last time I looked at the periodic table for real was in high school. And in the years since, I feel like every time I glimpse it, it's like more full. And I'm like, oh Lord, that's a whole nother podcast of learning that I have to do.
They're adding stuff. I think I've done a nucleosynthesis episode before, but maybe we could revisit. Talk about how the different elements form for you, bestie.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Constellations. They are made of stars. Since 2022, the IAU prohibits naming stars after people. I know that before 2022, when I was in grad school, there was a star that was really popular in the news for nerds called Tabby's star, because it was studied at first by Tabby Boyajian, Dr. Tabitha Boyajian.
Okay, Dr. Tabitha, let's go.
I'm going to put some respect on her name.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And it was this star that was really rapidly getting like brighter and dimmer in a irregular fashion, and people were like, oh my god, is it aliens? Like, what is it? And it turns out to most likely have been the planet, some of the planets around it, or one planet being kind of absorbed into the star, and then there was this, like, the star burped out some of that material, creating a dark cloud of gas that would sometimes pass in front of the star as it orbited. So there was like, the star got brighter as it ate, and then it burped, so the cloud made it dark, and then it got brighter again when the cloud was behind it, and it was like fun. So
wow, that is fun.
But we can't call it. We won't be having any more Tabby stars in the future.
But it is still Tabby Star.
I don't think it was ever officially Tabby Star. But this is the thing about the name.
They should call it Tabitha. They should call it Tabitha. That's a lovely name.
It's either Tabby Star or Boyajian Star, and that, like, the community continues to call it that, even if that's never been its official name.
Oh, what's its official name? Do you know?
It doesn't have a proper designation officially. It has many different survey IDs. So it will have, I'm sure it has a 2MASS number. I know it has an HD number, which is the Henry Draper catalog, which means it also has an HR number, which is the revised Harvard catalog.
That one I'm sure you're intimately familiar with. So you mentioned earlier that it like becomes more, I guess, popular. Like it becomes worth naming. They could name it formally. And in theory, actually no, because according to the rules,
No people.
there's not like a historical name of Tabitha or something that we could, like, is it there might be a way in.
There might be a way in. Yeah. Maybe people are working on it. But there are naming conventions for stars. So really bright stars that have a magnitude lower than 6.5. They are named after historical or indigenous constellations and traditional sky stories with permission from the relevant indigenous groups. For example, HR, which is the revised Harvard catalog, HR 1220, that's probably not its location, so that's probably like the 1,220th star in the catalog. It is named properly Aldu, after the Sami constellation of the reindeer cow, and the name was officially adopted on Christmas, bestie, of 2025.
The reindeer cow?
A reindeer cow.
I love that.
Yeah.
A reindeer cow.
A reindeer cow. Yeah.
So is it like a chunky reindeer? I'm curious. I need to go look this up now.
I should have looked up more. Let me...
Side note, the name Tabitha apparently means gazelle. And it carries associations with grace, beauty, and generosity, with its Greek equivalent Dorcas, also meaning gazelle. So I'm going to name it Dorcas. Or I'm going to submit that next time the IAU decides interested in it. And, we're breaking it wide open here. So I feel like, this is the pop-off point of finally getting this Tabby Star name formally after Tabitha somehow.
I love that. You heard it here first, folks. So the reindeer cow or the moose is officially called Sarvis to the Sami people and is a moose with big horns. Sarvis is the word for like a male reindeer or male moose, but the horns means that it's like female because they don't lose their horns in the winter time. Anyway, I like that we named it after a reindeer constellation on Christmas.
No, that's lovely.
Yeah, sometimes we're good at that. There are very few proper names for exoplanets. I said before, typically the exoplanet is named after the star and then given a letter to designate not the order that they fall in, like away from the star, but the order in which they were discovered. So sometimes you end up with these weird backward systems where you happen to discover the outer planet first and the inner planet last. For example, HR 8799 has 4 planets that we've discovered so far. And from closest to the star to furthest away, their designations are E, D, C, and B.
Have we not gotten A?
A is the star. So you always start with B.
Gotcha. Duh.
And then there are a whole bunch of naming conventions for the solar system.
Really?
This is actually where all the fun stuff is.
Okay, I'm excited.
I expected this to be most of the episode, but for Mercury, the different types of features on Mercury are named for artists, for the word snake in different languages, for the word hot in different languages, for important works of architecture, for ships of discovery or science expeditions, and for ancient abandoned cities.
Okay. Some of those I can connect to the god Mercury and like where we may have gotten it from, but wow, ancient abandoned cities. I know, like, especially the Greek and Roman gods had like so many different domains where it's like you could pull from some like lesser known one, and I'm like, snakes, architecture.
Mercury did. Hermes, he carried the staff with snakes.
The caduceus, maybe?
The caduceus, yeah.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the staff of Asclepius, which is only one snake, which is the medical thing.
That's the medical one, right? Okay.
And so, the different types of features, like a canal versus a plain versus a crater, each of those different types of feature has its own naming convention. So like all of the craters, for example, might be named after types of artists. I don't remember what the matchup is. But yeah, like that's how it works. And that's how it is for all of the planets.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Mercury doesn't have any moons. It's too close to the sun. Venus also doesn't have any moons, but its features are all named after women, either famous human women or all kinds of goddesses, not just loves. There's war goddesses, luck, desert goddesses, like rain. Well, not rain, just desert, because Venus is so hot.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of the features are named after women because it's the only planet named after a female deity.
Wow, I just realized that.
Yeah.
Or I realized it and forgot it because they're all Sailor Scouts to me.
Oh, yeah.
From Sailor. They're just Sailor Scouts to me. But yeah.
We had 9 planets. There are 12 Olympians, and we only picked one of the 6 goddesses.
Ladies. Where's the Venus planet? Like, come on.
We went to Titans before we used another goddess.
This is so interesting because now, obviously, the next on the list is Earth. And, like, if we named Earth things after the same type of thing across, like, I'm thinking about across the entire planet, like how big the planet is. And then I'm like, well, Jupiter's big. Mars is big. Like, there's so many different elements that you can name. And obviously there's like a limit of like, we're not naming every rock and molehill, but it's sort of like, wow, even like the big objects on Earth, it would take a lot to not only obviously name them all, like it's taken several generations of culture, like it's literally millennia of culture to decide on them. But it's just like a committee of Earth humans being like, let's name all of the things on Mercury, all of this, let's say craters are hot. Like, let's name all of the craters we can find after hot in different languages. And it's like, wow, it's going to take a while. It's so fascinating. Yeah, it's just fascinating. It's like, wow, the planets are so big and they're like, let's find a name for all the ones that we like.
Yeah, they don't name all of the features.
No.
There are some rules, like if it has to be more than a kilometer across or something.
Yeah.
But it is extensive. If you go to the Wikipedia page for Mercury, you can find a list of all of its features. Like, you can do that for
Wikipedia
Mars.
rabbit hole that I'm about to go down. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Great.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
So Earth, we know how Earth is named. Mars is where it gets interesting because there are moons now. The 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos, are named after the god Mars's sons, or Ares' sons with Aphrodite. They are terror and dread. They ride in chariots ahead of Ares, and they instill fear in people on the battlefield, which is very nice.
Right. So they circle around Mars and protect it from invaders.
Yes. And the surface feature nomenclature, you might like this. The surface feature nomenclature for Mars was formalized in 1958. And this was based on a system that was developed in the late 1800s by Italian astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli, who also was the first to discover the canals on Mars that led Percival Lowell to think that there were absolutely Martians who had built these like intricate canals on Mars. So Giovanni Schiaparelli came up with this nomenclature system. He is the uncle to Elsa Schiaparelli of designer fame. And according to that system, small craters on Mars are named after small towns and villages around the world with 100,000 people or less. So, like, if you live in a small town, maybe look up to see if that town is the name of a crater on Mars. And there are just like a bunch of other random rules for naming things on Mars. Jupiter is where it gets fun because all of the moons. So the Galilean moons that we think about, they were discovered by Galileo in 1610. On January 7th, he discovered the first.
I was like, why? I mean, I know it's you, so like, of course you know. But also, it's like, why do you know so specifically? But also, January 7th, right before your birthday.
Yeah, like he was observing into my birthday. But Galileo called them the Medicean stars in order to suck up to some local politicians or like royalty.
It's giving like Petco Park, you know, like.
Yes.
the Staples Center becoming
Staples Center.
like the SoFi Stadium, like whatever. Like, oh, it's just after the people who are funding you. Yeah.
And so they were called, their names now are Io, Ganymede, Callisto, and Europa. But those names were given to them by Simon Marius in like 1610. And those names grew unpopular over the next century or 2 centuries. So by the late 1800s, people were referring to them as Jupiter 1, 2, 3, and 4.
What? Like those names specifically, people just were like, I'm not using that anymore.
They just didn't want to use the names for the moons, so they were calling them numbers. We were in like a very kind of rigid quantitative time. I see, yeah.
Sounds familiar. Anyway.
Removing creativity from it, yeah.
Exactly.
So those were the first 4, and then the 5th moon was discovered in 1892, and the person who discovered it, I should have written their name down. The person who discovered it called it Amalthea. And then all of the moons discovered after that until 13 were just given numbers again.
Well, I guess too much to keep up with.
Yeah.
Jupiter keeps popping out moons.
Yeah. By the 1900s, people were going back to using the names for the Galilean moons. And so Amalthea came along and they were like, okay, sure. But in 1974, we discovered the 13th moon around Jupiter. Charles Kowal discovered the 13th moon around Jupiter, and he just wanted to call it Jupiter 13. But we were like, there are now too many moons. Sometimes like people want these mythology names. And so in 1975, the IAU decided to name all of Jupiter's moons after Zeus's lovers to keep with the pattern for the Galilean moons that Simon Marius named.
Gotcha.
Jupiter 13 was named Leda for the mother of Helen and Castor and Pollux.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Lucky. Maybe a little.
Maybe a little. And there was a German philologist.
A what?
A German philologist who studies like language and its rules.
Oh.
And his name is Jürgen Blunk, and he suggested this scheme where Jupiter's moons, if they are prograde, so they orbit in the same direction as Jupiter's rotation, then their names end in an A. And if they are retrograde, so they orbit backwards, then their name ends in an E. And if they have a really high inclination, so they're not like in line with Jupiter's orbit and it's like really extreme, then their name would end in an O. So that's just like a weird convention. And so sometimes they will actually change the spelling of a mythological figure's name to match with this A versus E convention.
That was also on a Cosmethology recently.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And in 2004, because there were so many moons of Jupiter being discovered, the IAU had to expand the name possibilities beyond Jupiter's lovers.
They actually ran out?
They didn't necessarily run out, but they were like, we will run out because we are fine. Like, we know that there are more.
I want them to run out first before they expand it, because like Zeus was trifling.
Well, no, because they have to keep it. They want to keep them in groups. So like
all the lover ones are a particular thing.
Yeah. And then like you want within a group, and typically these groups are asteroids that were captured and then broken up through collisions into smaller pieces. And you would want those group members to have names that like, you know, are at least similar. At least this is definitely what we do with Saturn. So up until 1789, they were doing the same number thing with Saturn's moons. They were just calling them Saturn 1 through 7. And the 7th one was discovered by William Herschel. He called the 6th and the 7th moons Mimas and Enceladus after giants from Greek mythology. And then he decided to name the other moons that people had discovered before him after titans from Greek mythology, except for one, which he just called Titan. And then gave the other ones actual names of titans.
It's like, maybe I should break this down further.
And until 2004, the moons that were discovered around Saturn were named after Greek titans. And there are a bunch of them, and there are a bunch of Greek giants that they could pull from. But then we discovered a whole bunch, and even now there are almost 300 known moons around Saturn. So they had to open it up to other mythologies, which is where we really get to have that. And so there are these different groups that have different orbital characteristics, and they have lumped them in to different cultures. So there's the Norse group, which are named after like Norse giants and figures. There's the Inuit group, which I love. And then there's a Gallic group. I haven't actually talked about any of those on Cosmythology, which is surprising to me because I do love me some Gauls.
Yeah, you do.
Uranus's moons are all named after characters from Shakespeare and Alexander Pope poems. So it is the only place in the solar system where the mythology expectation has been broken.
Right. But, Shakespeare did do a lot of mythological characters. So I still see the connection there. But they're not named after any of his mythological characters?
Titania is not a mythological figure. There is the queen of the fairies in actual mythology and folklore is either nameless or is Mab or is someone else. Titania is a name, another title for Diana and Artemis. Oberon, not a figure from mythology. Shakespeare pulled from
a variety of sources.
Yes. And so Uranus doesn't have mythologically named moons, and I haven't been able to talk about Uranus in cosmology, even though it is my favorite planet in the solar system, and that's just so mean.
Listen, you'll get to it, and just like they broke the rules on naming conventions, you can too.
Neptune has 16 moons, and they are all named for Greek sea figures. So,
makes sense.
There's one called Nereid, which is literally just like a whole class of nymphs.
Sea nymphs, yeah.
Yeah.
This one is all of the sea nymphs, and then this one is the specific sea
yeah.
nymph. That's what they all did it. It's like Titan, and then all of the Titans. Okay,
yes. Good. Exactly. Pluto is interesting. We've studied it. We sent a whole spacecraft to it specifically, so we know some of its surface features pretty well. And those surface features are named after either the name for the underworld in different cultures. I suspect Xibalba is probably a name of a feature. Mythological figures associated with the underworld, heroes who explored the underworld, and then its moons are named for monsters and just other figures who are associated with the Greek underworld. It has 5 moons.
Oh.
More than you expected?
Yeah. I thought it was maybe just the one.
Yeah, no, there are 5 out there. It's a whole little system unto itself.
And yet.
But that's partly why it's not.
Yeah.
So Charon, its biggest, most famous moon, half of its size, which is a crazy ratio.
It's the little sister, really.
Yeah.
Just following it around.
Yeah. Charon, its features are named for fictional and mythological voyagers like Captain Ahab from Moby Dick, which is fun. I like that story. That is the name of a crater on Charon.
Interesting.
Nyx this is another moon of Pluto. It's a primordial being of the night and darkness, and her surface features are named for deities of night from different cultures. Then there's Kerberos, who has surface features named after dogs from literature, mythology, and history.
Funny.
There's definitely a Balto feature.
That's
nice.
great.
And then Hydra is the 5th moon, and its surface features are named for legendary serpents and dragons.
Quick question, Bestie. You didn't name surface features from the gassy planets because they don't have surface features. And I was like, wait, we got back to Pluto. And I'm like, yeah, Pluto's the cold, lonely rock at the end, but it has surface features.
Yeah.
But Jupiter's gassy.
Yep, bestie. You got it.
Did we name Jupiter Storm? Like the red spot? Does that have a name? Would that be that would be a surface feature?
It is an atmospheric feature, which means it is transient. And we tend not to name transient things.
Even if it's like 1,000 years
Thousands of years old, yeah.
It's like it's transient to the universe, but not to us.
I will say that the IAU naming rules page that I saw did not have, I didn't see anything about Jupiter's surface feature, just its moons. Yeah. So just they're colloquially named the big red spot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. They need to find some weather goddesses and name the star after that.
That's a good idea, actually.
Oh, the atmospheric stuff.
But I think that there are too many.
Yeah.
So like maybe just for the big ones.
Yeah.
But I think you asked earlier about objects that are outside of Neptune and what they would be considered. So like, some of them are going to be dwarf planets. Some of them are going to be just like asteroids and stuff. But objects that are far beyond the orbit of Pluto are expected to be given the name of a deity or figure related to creation.
Huh.
So one of the bigger dwarf planets in the solar system is Haumea, who is a Hawaiian goddess of fertility and childbirth. There's another one called Maki Maki, the Polynesian creator of humanity and god of fertility. So once you get, I guess, far out in the solar system,
it's like they're starting, they're the inspiration of to start a new, like birthing new worlds or something. I don't know.
Yes. Exactly.
Going that. This was so fascinating, Bestie. One of my favorite topics in general. I love to go on Wikipedia deep dives, and so I will be doing that. This is fun.
This was fun.
And now they need to do atmospheric features, but it can have a lower limit, so that it's only things like the big red spot.
And Saturn's hexagon.
Saturn's what?
Oh.
Do we save that?
End episode.
Cliffhanger, okay?
Saturn has this great hexagonal storm at its pole. We'll talk about it.
Ooh, yeah, I love to talk about that.
Bestie, do you like your name?
That's an interesting question. I do, but it's an interesting one because it is so. I've gotten multiple times that it's like very, I don't know, posh or like highborn, like upper echelon. Like my full name is Constance, and then I nickname it to, the nickname is Connie. I get a lot of nicknames from Connie because of the prefix con. So I was remembering that I was Connie Con at some point in high school, and then eventually that became Triple C Dog.
Nice.
It was like a random aside. But yeah, conifer, constellation, like people will like find all the CON words that apply and like nickname it to me. And I don't mind it. It's just an interesting thing of like my name. It has this like very fluid characteristic about it because it goes from like very sophisticated, like people are like, ooh, Constance, like I love that name, it's so elegant or whatever, and then I'm like, but I'm just Connie.
Aw. Well, no matter how well you feel like your name fits you, you're still space.
Yes, some of these planets might feel the same way.
Yeah.
Pale Blue Pod is hosted by Dr. Moiya McTier and Connie Gibbs. Moiya created the show with the funny and talented Karine Caputo with help from the Multitude Productions team.
Our theme music is by Evan Johnston, our cover art by Shay McMullen, and our audio editing is handled by the superlative Misha Stanton.
Stay in touch with us and the universe by following @PaleBluePod on Instagram or check out our website, palebluepod.com.
I, Moiya, am Go Astro Mo on all socials.
And I'm @ConStar24 on Instagram.
If you want to support our show, join our community at patreon.com/palebluepod or send this episode to your family and friends group chats.
We're a member of Multitude, an independent podcast collective and production studio. If you like Pale Blue Pod, you will love the other shows that live on our website at multitude.productions.
Thanks for listening to Pale Blue Pod. We'll be back next week.